This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
All right, let's go to the guest of the hour, being Scott Hastings. Again, former Razorback, the analyst for television broadcasts with the Denver Nuggets, also does radio in Denver. Scott, we really appreciate you making some time for us this morning, especially on the day of Game 4 tonight. You played with Dominique Wilkins. You played with Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer. You played against Larry Bird. You've seen some legends in person. What is it like watching Nikola Jokic evolve as an NBA player as quickly as he has?
Well, you know what he is? He's kind of like a talented Joe Klein, to be honest with you. No. Don't tell him I said that. I don't know. He's, since my time's calling games in Denver anyway, he's the best I've ever seen there. Probably my 11 years in the league, playing Denver twice a year for that span from 82 to 93. He's the best I've ever seen. He's just phenomenal. He does stuff that every night after a while you take for granted. The Game 3, he missed like 4 these little floater bunny shots, close in shots, and you're like surprised. You're like, whoa. You're like, and everybody misses shots, but when he does, you're like absolutely shocked. He's a quality guy. He's a nice guy. He's a family guy. He loves to play basketball. He doesn't care about individual accolades. He cares about winning, and that's kind of rare in today's sport.
What's the conversation and the mood like with the fans out there? I mean, the Avs win the Stanley Cup a year ago. You got the Nuggets, marching their way towards an NBA title. You got Coach Prime out there with Colorado now. It seems like maybe the hotbed for sports is right there in the Denver area. Well,
and I know a lot of folks in Arkansas don't think about it. They won the lacrosse, the Pro League of Lacrosse last year and lost in the finals, last game of the finals this year. So they've had some success. It's a buzz, and it's kind of interesting because I've been able to cover since my time in Fayetteville 3 Super Bowl wins. I've covered a couple, actually 3 Stanley Cup wins also, and it sparks the town. The interesting thing is, this town's been around almost as long as the Broncos, to be honest with you. And so there's a hardcore fan base. I was outside doing our pregame show in Denver. I think Game 1. The guy came up to me and introduced himself. He's with his son, and he goes, "I've been a season ticket holder for 40 years." The guy was in a walker. He said he was 90 years old. Well, son was probably 64, 65. And they were just ecstatic. So for Denver fans, and listen, one thing we're not Boston fans. We don't get snobby about our wins. But we do remember, tough years and being beat down a little bit. And there is a lot of excitement, probably more excitement. Well, there should be here in the NBA Finals, but as much excitement as I've ever seen around the Denver Nuggets.
Scott, I'm old enough to remember when Denver had an ABA franchise, when they were the Rockets back in the day.
Yep.
And then, obviously with a merger, they became the Nuggets. How long did it take basketball, to really, you're a basketball guy. You came from probably the greatest basketball state in the Union. What was it like watching the sport grow there?
Well, I will say this, and when you look at the merger, and you got to go back to when the ABA and NBA merged with each other, I think the teams, 6 teams, 5 or 6 teams that were able to merge into the NBA, I would say they had a heck of a fan base. I'm not sure that the NBA puts them in without having, a pretty good fan base. In fact, I think Denver's first year in the NBA, they might have had the best record in the NBA. So there's been a good following. it's just been lean. You know, when you're good in 67 and 76, and you're not playing in an NBA championship all the way until 2023. I think there's been a bunch of people kind of fallen by the wayside, or kind of, maybe it's like one of those zombie movies, and a whole bunch of guys just buried in the ground and fell asleep, and so somebody covered them up, because there's a lot of them waking up, and it's really been kind of neat too. There's a number of kind of old Nuggets guys, and it's really funny. I've had a chance to talk to, I do a radio show in Denver, and we talked to 3 or 4 guys, and they're all kind of excited for this team, and I don't know, it's been fun. They're well coached. They got a great ownership group, and they've got probably, I think, the best player in the world playing for them right now.
You know, you played for coaching legends. I mean, you think about Eddie Sutton at Arkansas, and Hubie Brown, and Mike Fratello. By the way, I don't know what you think. I think Hubie Brown's the greatest analyst in the history of basketball. Yeah, Chuck Daly too. What was that like? I mean, give us a sense of how that's molded you as a player and now as a broadcaster, because those guys are pretty good at that too.
Well, Eddie Sutton was a father figure to me, and he coaches players like that. One of the most brilliant guys, instill confident guys in you know, when you're playing. I remember one of the first times we had not played well, and we got down. There's probably like 10 minutes to go. We're down a few 15 maybe. You know, he keeps positive. We get down, there's like a minute to go. We're down 5, and guys are like freaking out in the huddle. And he goes, and he stopped everybody. He goes, "Listen, you're going to win this game. Here's how you do it." And sure enough, we didn't come back and win that game. But I was, it might have been my freshman year, and I was like, "Oh gosh, this guy's a wizard, right? He got something special." Hubie, excuse me, he was probably the scariest coach I played for. He would get on you, and you know, I watched him make grown NBA men, dudes that had come from and played the ABA, so veteran grown NBA men, cry. He was tough, but I always told everybody, you know, Pat Foster was my assistant coach in Arkansas, so I could take anything. Who's a dear friend, I love him. I hope he heard that. But he was intricate in detail and how he did something. We used to do a drill, how to throw a lob pass, and I'm not talking lob dunk, but when you throw it in the post and a guy fronts your post, he had a down to an art where you threw the pass, and we would work at it in practice. This throwing over the top pass to the big man so he could get a layup. And Fratello was a lot like him, because Fratello was on UV staff. In fact, when I played for UV in New York, Mike was the assistant coach there. And then Chuck Daly was a genius. He was brilliant in how he talked to people. He was brilliant in how he controlled people. He connected in a funny way sometimes. And by far, other than Eddie Sutton, I'm hoping that Eddie and Chuck are up in heaven somewhere swapping stories of Scott Hastings.
And by the way, Scott Hastings is our guest, Denver's analyst here for the Nuggets and the radio host as well. Scott, Arkansas is in a new regime of basketball right now under Eric Musselman, and I know Coach Sutton had a chance to come back before his passing for the red-white game. What is your connection with Eric Musselman in the basketball program right now?
Well, I'm waiting for him to send me some cool new gear, and I haven't gotten in the mail yet.
It's coming.
I don't know. Alumni, fanboy. I got 3 or 4 guys. You guys, when I came on talking about, Arkansas fans all over the place, and Lance Allworth, one of the old time line. You guys probably too young to remember that, but Lance Alder, great wide receiver, basically said anywhere he could go, call the Hogs, there'd be an Arkansas fan. And I guess one of his teammates in San Diego there in New York bet him, $20 or whatever it was. And he said, well, get off this bus and call the Hogs. They're on the team bus. Got off the bus and Times Square called the Hogs, and somebody goes, "Go Hogs," or something like that. I don't have a relationship with him. Earl Boykins was a friend of mine who was his assistant that first year they were there.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it going. He's figured it out. He's a motivational guy. He was the head coach of Sacramento when I believe I was in the league, and it was a struggle. But there's a difference between coaching college and basketball mentality-wise. In the NBA, no matter who you think you are, it's a players' league. The faces of the program are the players. Even Greg Popovich is learning that in San Antonio, being gruff and nasty. Well, you can be gruff and nasty and talk down to anybody you want to and spew whatever nonsense you got if you got Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Parker around you. But in college, the face of the program is the coach. And this program has turned around under him, and what he's doing with recruiting and NILs and everything else, it's just been fantastic to see. And maybe I'll test that out. I'll go down to Miami in the game and I call the Hogs to see if I can get anybody to respond.
Scott, you played with some great NBA players. We talked about them. You've been under some legendary coaches. You also played with some great Razorbacks, Sidney Moncrief, U.S. Reed, Darrell Walker. When did you know, when playing with Sidney, that he had the potential to become the player he ended up being for the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, you just see him, day in and day out. I mean, he was a senior my freshman year, and I became a starter about right before I think the Southwest Conference season started. And so he and I were starters together. He had this, you come from high school and you're BMOC, right? And you're all good. You win a state title. You're the league, state player of the year, MVP. You're like, this is, I know what tough basketball is about. Then you come to Arkansas and you're watching guys on the first day of preseason practice throwing up on the side of the court. You're like, oh, I don't know nothing about what real basketball is. And he was like that thoroughbred that came out right away with all this. And we had a big freshman class, and we're sitting there dying. And how can we cut? Can I open when you're doing those suicide line drills? You go up, you got supposed to touch the line. About the 4 sets you're running. He said, man, maybe if I miss it by 3 inches, I won't die as much. And he was like the thoroughbred. He had this gait about him. I don't know if you guys ever got to see him play live. He had this gait about him when he ran. I mean, it literally looked like a Lipizzan horse, right? He just had this. It was just beautiful, special. He was a leader. He was the first guy I ever played for that I could say I saw how to be a leader. He was passionate. He cared. He worked his butt off every game. And I'll be honest with you, and I was a young kid when I played with Sidney. We've remained friends all these years. But I think I became a better basketball player having played with him. And you can't always say that about teammates. I can say I became a better beer drinker playing with this guy as a teammate. But with Sidney, I can honestly say I became a better, probably smarter player because of him.
Scott, we got about a minute before we got to wrap it up. But I got to ask you, I remember where I was sitting February 6th, 1982, when you hit that jumper over Akeem and Arkansas beat Houston. I think it was one of the greatest moments in Razorback basketball history. Do you still think about that? Do you still talk about that when you see the dream? Does it ever come up?
Yes, but not by me. and I haven't seen Akeem in a few years, but real fast. So we're playing the league together and became kind of friendly. You know, we'd always talk and stuff. But if anybody came and joined us while we were talking, he'd make sure and point out, he'd introduce me. Hey, this, Scott Hastings, he owes me money. He owes me money. And I'd be looking at him first time he said it. He goes, he hits one shot over me in college, and now he has a 10-year career. And he still hasn't paid me my money. So, yeah, the shot has lived. I would love to, that would be funny to get that on tape, but the shot has lived for 41 years now because Akeem claims I owe him money because that shot got me into the NBA.
Well, that's not the only reason people remember it, but that's part of it. Man, what a thrill to talk to you, Scott. Thank you.
Hey, guys, anytime, keep my number and give me a holler.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your championship finals info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA and Stanley Cup Finals. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs, from baseball and hockey to MLB, UFC, and boxing. The fastest and easiest way to get all your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. Get in the action today. Head over to our website or use your mobile device to join, and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive 50% bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.